What's up guys, Section here. So previously, nag-build ako ng budget AM5 system around 50,000 pesos. And kung di nyo pa napapanood yon, check nyo na lang dito sa channel ko. Ngayon, I'll explain na lang the parts choices, kung bakit ito yung napili natin and some possible alternatives. As well as show you some gaming benchmarks para may idea kayo sa performance ng build na ito. But before that guys, tuturuan ko muna kayo on where to purchase legit Windows 10 or 11 license keys sa murang halaga. Today's video is sponsored by VIPSCDK.com. I'm sure na naghahanap kayo ng murang Windows license. This time naman meron silang promo which is yung New Year Super Sale lasting until January 31. So meron silang ongoing promo with some of their products. Tuturo ko sa inyo paano mag-purchase at the same time paano ito i-activate. Alright guys, so nandito na sa page ni VIPSCDK. So ito yung website nila. They're selling po yung mga Windows license, ayan, Microsoft Windows 10 Pro OEM. Pwede rin itong gamitin for free upgrade to Windows 11 Pro. So mas makakamura kayo kaysa bumili ng standalone Windows 11 Pro na key. So ito, pagka in-apply nyo itong extra 20% off, 20% off lang yun guys. So sa akin, meron akong special code na 25% off, which is yung code na ituturo ko sa inyo mamaya. Paano yan guys? Ang gagawin muna natin is, bago kayo magkaroon ng account dito, if you're a first timer here, you need to log in your Facebook. Ayan, nakalagin na po sa akin. Then, punta lang kayo dito, sign in. Yan, meron ako account kasi dito. Yun yung lagi kong ginagamit. And there you have it, nakalagin na po ako. Alright, so yan, nandito na tayo ulit sa page na to. So, buy now na tayo. So now, andito na tayo sa my order confirmation. And then, yung promotion code natin, which is yung XTNC. So yan, mapapansin nyo yung current price. I click natin yung apply. And ayan, nakita nyo, yung ating 25% discount was applied. Naging $16 na lang siya. So more than $5 din yung nasave natin. Ngayon, need na rin natin i-type yung email address dito for order delivery. So type nyo lang yung email nyo. And then make sure na naka-apply na yung promotional code bago nyo i-click yung submit order. Paano bumili dito? I'm using Paymaya, Gcash, or PayPal. Yung tatlo na lang yun. Okay? So, ito yung pinipili ko. So, Pay Now. Yan. So, mapupunta po kayo dito. So, nasa sa inyo yan kung anong gagamitin nyo. You can use your credit card, Paymaya, Visa, or Mastercard, or Gcash. So, mga nagtatanong, Christian, paano bumili ng Paymaya and Gcash? Meron dapat kayong card dito, yung physical card ng Paymaya or Gcash. Meron kasing mga number yon para po silang debit card. Ita-type nyo po yun dito. Make sure lang na meron pong funds yun. Type nyo lang yung card number, validity, and yung CVV. Then, fill out nyo lang tong billing address na yan. So, ganun lang kasimple. Then, continue na lang po. Hintayin nyo lang mabawasan yung funds. It's either sa Paymaya nyo or sa Gcash kung yun man yung ginamit nyo. So, Christian, saan ko makukuha if confirm na yung payment? So, pupunta po kayo dito sa taas or user center once you're logged in. So, makita nyo dito yan sa may purchase orders. So, yan, nakita nyo? So, dyan nyo po makikita yung Windows license key na binili natin dito sa VIPSCDK. So, i-click nyo lang yan, then mag-a-appear na yung key. So, for the activation, go to the search bar on your Windows desktop and type Activation Settings. Once there, click Change Product Key. Paste the Windows key license you copied from your VIPSCDK account, then click Next. After that, click Activate. Here, you can see the Windows edition, that is Windows 10 Pro, and that Windows is now activated with a digital license. You can also purchase Windows 11 and Microsoft Office software in the VIPSCDK website, or just click the links in our video description. For the CPU, we picked up the AMD Ryzen 5 7500F. So here, we choose the current generation na para mas magandang upgrade path if ever man na mag-upgrade kayo in the future. Meron itong 6 cores and 12 threads and support PCIe 5.0 na rin. So ideal ito for the newest hardware like GPUs and storage devices that support this standard. Wala nga lang itong built-in graphics, so need natin ng separate na graphics card para dito. Sa motherboard naman, ang napili namin is the MSI Pro B650M-A Wi-Fi. I think maganda itong motherboard na ito at its price range, since may Wi-Fi na rin built-in for those who need it, and it has more heatsinks compared to other brands sa price range na ito. So there's much better thermal performance. For the graphics card naman, we have here the Palit Dual RTX 4060 8GB. Here, there's a lot of possible options pero I think the RTX 4060 would be great kung habol nyo ay magamit yung mga Nvidia specific features like DLSS 3, frame generation, Nvme at iba pa. There's also less power consumption than other RTX graphics cards which is always welcome. And for gaming, it really performs well at 1080p and even mid to high 1440p in some games. Sa memory naman, nag-32GB na tayo although pwede na rin naman mag-16GB. This is more about future-proofing na rin. And since memory prices have gone down already, mas mura na rin natin nabili itong Kingston Fury Beast 32GB kit running at 5200 MT per second at around 6,000 pesos. So more memory not just for games but also for multitasking and productivity applications. And for the SSD, we choose the MSI Spatium M450 500GB Gen 4 Nvme SSD, which is probably one of the cheapest Gen 4 na SSD and I think okay naman itong Spatium line nila since I've used many of these from the previous build so far. And Gen 4 na rin ito, so much faster read and write speeds which should make games and applications load much faster than Gen 3 SSDs. So power supply, we have the Cooler Master 550W 80 plus bronze. I think more than enough na itong 550 watts natin for the components na ikakabit since di naman ganun kalakas ang power consumption ng mga components natin dito. Even the graphics card, reliable brand din naman si Cooler Master, so I think there would be some peace of mind on using this power supply. And on the case, we have the MSI MEG Forge M100 RTG Mesh. I like its design mostly because compact size ito. Mesh ang front panel which should give better airflow and may kasama na rin 4 na ARGB fans and hub and tempered glass side panel. Bagay na bagay dito sa ating build. So now we're done with the parts, let's talk about the gaming benchmarks. I tested 9 games at 1080p max settings, mostly modern titles with a mix of competitive and AAA games para makita natin yung performance. First is yung Assassin's Creed Mirage, where we had an average FPS of 150. And here we can see that both our CPU and GPU are working pretty well. Although our CPU is on the hotter side at around 80 degrees Celsius since naka-stock cooler pa tayo. Although there's the option naman to buy an aftermarket cooler if you're not comfortable with those temperatures. Sa Apex Legends naman, being a much lighter game, we got an average of 170 FPS, although we've seen it go beyond 200 FPS at some point sa laro, especially pag walang explosions or smokes. CS2 on the other hand, we've got an average of 160 FPS. Again, this is at 1080p max settings. And CS2 is somehow much heavier to drive now compared to CSGO. But still, it's very easy lang for this PC to get higher FPS. On Spider-Man Remastered, we got an average naman of around 135 FPS. So more than enough for a good experience sa larong ito. While on COD Modern Warfare 2, at Extreme Preset, we had an average of around 90 FPS. So if you want more FPS, we can lower the preset to high instead. Sa Starfield naman, there's an average of around 95 FPS, so even at the highest preset, pwede mo rin itong laruin. At Valorant, being the easiest game to drive here so far, had an average FPS of around 600. Although naglalaro siya mostly between 550 to 750 FPS, which is really more than enough for this game. Sa Cyberpunk 2077 naman, we've tested this on 2 modes. First is 1080p max settings without enhancements such as ray tracing and DLSS, only native rendering. Here, we got an average of around 70 FPS, so very playable na rin. And we turn on both DLSS and ray tracing, which is designed to complement together. We only got an average of 55 FPS, so if you think you don't need ray tracing anyway, you can turn it off na lang and instead turn on either DLSS or DLSS frame generation for better performance in this game since graphically heavy ito. So same modes lang with F122, first with no ray tracing and DLSS turned on. We got an average FPS of around 190 FPS, which is more than enough for this kind of game. Turning both ray tracing and DLSS with frame generation on naman, it's almost similar lang at around 185 on average. Again, it's the same recommendation that I said earlier. You can just turn off ray tracing and instead turn on DLSS for much higher FPS. And for the thermals, I think may idea na kayo if you saw the benchmarks earlier. So for the CPU, nag-average tayo ng 79 degrees all throughout our tests. So if you're not comfortable with that or kung feeling nyo medyo mainit ito para sa inyo, then you can get an aftermarket cooler, either air na tower type or AIO liquid cooler for better temps, which would also result to much better performance since the CPU can boost at higher frequencies din. Pero I think okay pa rin naman ito if you want to stick with the stock cooler instead since hindi naman siya nagta-thermal throttle during our tests. Sa graphics card naman, the cooler here works pretty well. We only got an average of 53 degrees Celsius and max of 70.9 degrees. So, okay ito. Hindi siya ganun kainit and it means our airflow and cooling works well for the graphics card. In my opinion, kung naghahanap kayo ng system or gaming PC for a budget of 50,000 pesos na pwede not just for gaming but also for other purposes like say entry mid-level video editing, streaming, and even productivity tasks, pwede na rin ito. For streaming and editing, having that Nvme encoder helps since we have an Nvidia graphics card. So there would be less performance impact when gaming and much faster performance on encoding. Probably tipid din ito sa kuryente since there's lower power consumption with the components of choice, especially with the graphics card since RTX 4060 ito. So if power consumption is concerned, okay din ito. And as we saw with the performance benchmarks kanina, it's great for gaming especially at 1080p settings. And I think this can do even 1440p gaming either on mid to high settings with some games. You just had to find the best setting or preset that fits your needs.